My name's Nigel Kirk. I'm 31 years old and I am homeless. My first experience with homelessness was about 7 years ago, and on and off the streets for a little while. I managed to get housed briefly through a Canadian Mental Health Association, but I graduated from their program, did everything I was supposed to do, got a job, was working. I moved into a new place, and shortly after that, because of the economy, I was laid off from my job. I was working in a kitchen, and it's just we were getting less customers. A lot of our clientele were people who were working in the oil patch, just looking for a night out with the family when they were in town and all that stuff. After that, my savings ran out, and I had to move back into the streets. And that brings me here to where I am today. I've been involved with homeless-related activism for about 6 years now. And it started off with the idea of wanting to change how people think of homelessness and try and get them to think of homelessness as people. And now I'm working on going in even deeper into challenging the human rights aspect and the idea that people who are homeless should be protected under in a human rights level. Well, I myself sit on the board of directors for Vibrant Communities Calgary. So I try to keep things in balance and try and remind people of how this policy affects people who are in poverty, or if something's part of the strategy that might not actually affect people who are living in poverty. I try and make sure that they're aware of that, and I'm not critical of them. It's just one of those things where it's like, I work with them, I want to help. So myself and other members of Poverty Talks are working to do what we can to make this plan succeed. They are an organization made up entirely of people with lived experience, and by lived experience I mean people who are living in poverty, trying to advocate for people who are living in poverty. And sometimes that includes awareness events. Sometimes that includes going to city council or talking to our MLAs. We are trying to change the way people think about poverty, and we're particularly trying to think about policy that affects the lives of people who are living in poverty, as well as, of course, challenge notions of what people think of those who are in poverty. There's still a lot of people out there who think that homeless people are less than people. A lot of the bylaws that we have in this city are designed to make homelessness invisible by sweeping us under a carpet or forcing us to stay in a shelter. We only see a small portion of the homeless population. So all these people who have their misnomers that homeless people are all drunks or that they're not trying to look for work or anything like that, it's because you're only seeing like maybe the 10% that aren't out there working. The rest of them are trying to find work. The rest of them are out there working. They're being productive with their lives. They're behaving like normal people, and you wouldn't know that they were homeless. We've got about 3,500 homeless people in Calgary. I'm not sure about the employment numbers now under the current economy. I know in the previous recession had been starting off, which we weathered through quite well. About 60% of the homeless population was employed at least part-time. A lot of people still to this day think that if you're homeless, it's just because you're lazy. And I'm like, I don't know, 40,000, 30,000 jobs lost since the economy started crashing. That doesn't sound like 30,000 lazy people. It sounds like 30,000 people who were unfortunately the most recent hire. And it's not just in the oil and gas sector. People who are making big money in the oil and gas sector spent a lot of that money. So a lot of the places that they were spending at are now losing business. It's been a slow trickle effect, but the effect is starting to trickle down now, and we are seeing that. A lot of it is looking for work because, as I had said before, there are a lot of employers who don't want to hire people who live on the streets because of that preconceived notions regarding homeless people. Oh, they're thieves, they're drunks, they're lazy, most of which is not true. And so trying to challenge those notions has been a huge part of it. Obviously, there's a legal aspect as well. We have to get transportation just like anyone else. We use public transportation, and of course, we sometimes have a lack of funds, which means, I'll admit, stealing C-train rides. And those tickets add up very, very quickly. Um, and that's been a huge challenge. And I'm kind of hoping that we can develop an alternative way to deal with people with no fixed address who have minor infractions, such as C-train fare issues or smoking in areas where they're not supposed to smoke, things like that, better ways of dealing with it. And yeah, so those are some of the biggest challenges that I personally have had to face is dealing with bylaw and dealing with employment discrimination. I do think payday loans are an important service, but there's a reason why they're called predatory lending. When I was housed through CMHA, I was living in Horizon West, which is up on on 37th Street and 17th Avenue. And right on there, one of the money marts is finally closed down, but there's two money marts right across the street from each other. And then there, on the other corner, there's a gas station. Behind the gas station is another payday lending institute. And this is right all just around the corner from an entire apartment building where everyone is on a fixed income, because most of the people who are there are on welfare or on disability of some sort. The vast majority of the people who are living there have mental health issues or are seniors. And they say, oh, we're not setting up location based on predatory lending or trying to take advantage of anyone. BS, if you've got three payday loan institutes a block away from a place like that, you don't see these places being set up in the burbs, plain and simple. But I do not want to see them completely shut down. I do want to see better regulations. I do want to see lower interest rates. But I want to see better alternatives so that way people aren't going to these places as their first resort. My bank has been pretty good and pretty fair to me so far, so long as I make sure that I don't go into overdraft. I do think that it would be nice to because having a bank account is so important now for life. I do think more banks should have tailor-made options for people who are homeless. And I know there are some credit unions who have been working on that. It'd be nice to see some of the bigger banks bringing in such initiatives as well. Generally, the biggest issue with money management is in order to get a lot of the services, we're forced to take money management classes that are not designed for homeless people. They're designed for people who are in the lower ends of the middle class, people who can get by but still aren't necessarily the most responsible with their money. People who are low income and homeless can share a lot, but when I'm thinking of like the people these classes target, it's almost like the lower ends of the middle class, people who are making a living wage but barely just kind of thing. They're in like the $40,000 a year range kind of thing, and they've just got lots of credit card bills adding up. For people who are homeless, it's like some of us might have some of those debts. A lot of us don't. My total credit card debt is about $250 to $300 right now. Plus I have my student loan debt and a few fines that I need to pay off. Outside of that, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm probably debt-wise, I'm probably in better shape than most of the country. For the most part, we have more month than money. We're trying to sock aside money away to try and get out of the streets, and we're trying to pinch every penny that we can, and we often don't get that acknowledgement. It's like even when I was renting just about 3 months ago, I had just enough to pay the bare minimum of what I needed to survive, and I was content with that. But no amount of budgeting skills is going to change the amount that I need to survive. And it's not going to change the amount of money that I'm making. So no matter how much I save or how much I squeeze every penny, I'm already squeezing as much as I can, and it's not helping. And there are people who are in that situation because they're already managing their money as best as anyone probably can, and better than most of the country is. overall, I think we need a major ideological shift. We need to start understanding that people who are in poverty and people who are homeless are people who need help. But you have to understand that each person's situation is different, and it is not your job to determine what kind of help these people need. When you do that, it becomes a power struggle between people who are in poverty and people who are not in poverty. We need to start actually listening to their stories and letting them ask us for help, because they will ask us for the kind of help that they need. We know what kind of help we need as people who are in poverty, and other people need to start understanding that and stop trying to help us best by micromanaging every single facet of our lives. We need better case management and less case micromanagement. And I think once we get through that, we'll start seeing a lot of things change, because we'll start seeing banks more tailor-made to suit their clients' needs. We'll start seeing services more suited to help their clients' needs. I would like to be employed. I would like to have an apartment. I would like to at least, be in an apartment where I can have friends over and be able to have fun, and maybe have one of them crash on the couch overnight kind of thing. So in a year, I would like to be in an apartment where I have that kind of freedom. I would like to have a job that I can come home from every night and think that I did a good job and I helped my employer make a profit. And I would like to be able to still continue to spend my free time fighting for people who are living in poverty and fighting for the rights of people who are on the streets. If I had my GoFundMe web address right in front of me, I would tell you to go check it out. But if you happen to be very good at Google search, try and find my fundraiser on GoFundMe to help send me to London for the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness conference.